At my daughter Emily's 1-month celebration, my husband Ethan heard that his first love, Nora Owens, had just gotten divorced. He immediately got himself drunk and insisted on driving more than 600 miles through the night just to go pick her up. He said she still loved him. She had lost everything, and she was waiting for him. I swallowed my tears, clenched my teeth, called my in-laws over, and told them I wanted a divorce. That night, he didn't manage to leave. The next day, he saw Nora's post, a picture of her wrist cut and bleeding. He went insane, grabbed Emily, and carried her out to the balcony. "Let her taste what it feels like to lose the person you love most, Lily." I rushed forward to take my daughter back, but he pushed both of us down the stairs. In the moment I fell, I held my child tightly, and after a wave of numbing pain, I opened my eyes again and found myself back at that same 1-month celebration. I looked at Ethan, drunk and restless, wanting to rush out to find his so-called white moonlight Nora. I simply smiled and said, "Go. This time I'll let you get what you want. I want to see how long a man with nothing can survive on love alone. Waiting? That's too easy. Living worse than waiting. That's the real punishment." The party was almost over. Ethan and I were still busy seeing the guests out. Only one table remained. His old classmates were still drinking, occasionally breaking into gossip. Hey, I've got hot news. Nora Owens just got divorced. Did you guys know? Didn't she marry some great guy? Why the sudden divorce? Great my ass. She basically became a maid in a rich family. Honestly, she kind of deserves it. If she'd married Ethan years ago, she wouldn't be like this now. The sensation of falling from that height was still carved into every muscle, making my legs weak and almost unable to hold me up. Yet Ethan didn't notice anything strange about me. His entire mind had already been swept away by their gossip. "Lily, take Emily home first. I'll have a few drinks with them," he said. Without waiting for my reply, he grabbed a glass of wine and pretended to look relaxed as he walked toward them. I quietly headed home first. The divorce papers were already written and waiting for me. That night, just as expected, Ethan came home about 70 or 80% drunk, helped inside by his friends. The moment he saw me, he lunged forward. "Lily, I'm sorry," he slurred, then staggered toward the car keys, trying to run outside. I snatched them away and asked where he thought he was going. He used the alcohol as an excuse to scream like a madman. "I have to go find Nora. She still loves me. She's waiting for me. Lily, open the door. Give me the car keys. Don't force me to lay hands on you." I curled my lips. Time for a tear-stained performance. I grabbed his hand, tears falling like rain, and choked out, "Then what am I to you? What were all these years together? Have you ever truly loved me, even for 1 second?" He froze, confusion flickering in his eyes. "Don't ask me that. I don't know," he muttered, then stumbled as he pulled out his phone and shoved it at me. "All I know is that Nora needs me." On the screen was Nora Owens' newest status. "I've lost everything except my memories. I once had a dream that the boy who promised me a home would drive to pick me up with roses in his hand. But it was only a dream. There seems to be nothing left in this world worth holding on to anymore." I quickly took screenshots, carefully saving everything and preparing for my plan. I pulled out 2 copies of the divorce agreement. Hugging him tightly, I gritted out each word. "So Emily and I together still don't matter as much as Nora Owens in your heart. Then let's divorce. Sign this. Agree to leave the house, the car, the company, our daughter, and all the savings to me, and I'll let you go immediately." Ethan grabbed the agreement from my hand, and, without reading a single word, he quickly signed the divorce papers and the share transfer agreement, then pressed his fingerprint on both copies. After that, he threw them hard at me. "Is that enough?" Without waiting for my answer, he went crazy, yanked my shirt, snatched the keys from me, and slammed the door open as he rushed out. I looked at the agreements in my hand, satisfied, and hurried into the bedroom. Outside the door, Mrs. Schwarzenwald Turner's voice sounded. She was on the phone with my in-laws, reporting everything. After carefully locking the door, I immediately texted my best friend, Kelly, who was also my lawyer. "Kelly, he already signed. My in-laws are on their way." Kelly replied instantly, "Transfer the shares before the divorce registration. Filing a lawsuit takes too long. Best option is to force him to register the divorce right away. Delete this after reading and call me." I didn't respond. I quietly erased every message. Mrs. Turner's voice rang outside the door again. Lily, come out first. Let me treat your wounds. I already called Ethan's parents. They said they'll be here soon. I messed my hair into a tangled knot, dabbed some pale makeup on my face to look like a soulless corpse, then slowly went out to open the door. Mrs. Turner pulled me back into the living room, right into the camera's recording frame. I continued my performance. After she did some simple first aid on my wounds, I called Kelly. The moment she picked up, I burst into tears. Kelly, Ethan doesn't want me anymore. He doesn't even want Emily. What am I supposed to do? Kelly's furious voice exploded through the phone. What? Where is he? I forgot a file at home. I'm on my way over. Wait for me. Right then, the doorbell rang. My in-laws had arrived. The living room floor was still full of shattered glass we hadn't cleaned up yet. Blood stains covered both me and my daughter. The moment Mr. and Mrs. Miller stepped inside, they gasped in horror. Is the baby hurt? Let me see her. What on earth happened? How did things get like this? Where's Ethan? I started crying even louder, tears and snot pouring uncontrollably. Mrs. Turner, the only outsider present, began recounting everything that happened. But I felt her explanation wasn't heartbreaking enough, so I sobbed and handed Ethan's parents my phone. Mom, Dad, Ethan must be possessed or something. The moment he saw Nora Owens' post, he went crazy. He insisted on driving out to find her. I called him 10 times, he didn't pick up. I texted, he didn't reply. Then he blocked my number. Hoo-hoo. Please look at the camera footage. See how heartless he was. My father-in-law took the phone. On the screen was Nora Owens' post, followed by the surveillance footage showing Ethan drunk, raging out of control. His expression twisted with anger. He's out of his damn mind. Lily, don't you worry. When I find him, I'll break his legs myself. My mother-in-law looked more anxious, though she still tended to defend her son. He's so drunk he can't even walk straight, and he still wanted to listen to that witch and drive out at night? Oh God, it's already so late. I hope nothing's happened to him. Happened? Of course something must have happened. My father-in-law snapped. If he gets arrested for drunk driving and thrown in prison for a few months, that's still too light for him. I grabbed her hand in panic, trembling. Mom, what should we do now? The car has ETC at toll stations. No one checks anything. He might already be on the highway. Hearing that, both of them panicked even more. They frantically pulled out their phones, taking turns calling and texting Ethan non-stop, their messages firing off like rockets. At first, he didn't pick up any calls. My father-in-law pounded the keyboard furiously, cursing him in the group chat. The more they called, the more frantic they became, determined to make him answer. Right at that moment, the doorbell rang again. Kelly had arrived. I threw myself into her arms, crying as hard as I could. Kelly's face was ice cold as she looked straight at my in-laws, forcing them to show their stance. Mr. and Mrs. Miller, with all due respect, I need to speak frankly. If anything happens tonight, I hope you both won't blame us, Kelly said firmly. But let me make this clear, if Ethan doesn't come back tonight, both agreements will automatically take effect. My in-laws panicked and nodded repeatedly. All right, Lily, don't worry. We'll definitely bring him back and make him apologize properly. Time crawled by in suffocating tension. After more than 10 calls, the phone finally connected. On speakerphone came Ethan's slurred voice. Mom, Dad, let me get back first. I'm on the highway. His voice was blurry, either from being too drunk or because he was already falling asleep. My in-laws shouted over each other in panic. Pull over right now. Move to the emergency lane or stop at a rest area. Call the highway patrol. Stop driving. Send us your location now. That year, you two looked down on Nora's poor family. Ethan suddenly spoke clearly, anger cutting through his drunkenness. That's why she broke up with me. I accepted marrying far away. This time, nobody can stop me. Right after that, the roar of his engine blasted through the phone. My in-laws tried to keep talking him down when, bang! A massive crash thundered through the speaker, followed by a chain of violent metallic collisions, scraping, grinding, complete chaos. Ethan! 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 Both of them screamed his name, but only static crackled back before the line went dead completely. With an impact like that, it was obviously a real accident. What a pity. Nora Owens' dramatic wrist-slashing performance tomorrow morning would now be missing her most devoted audience. I wondered if she would still bother acting without him watching. The living room turned into utter panic. My mother-in-law was trembling, swallowing her blood pressure pills and heart medication. My father-in-law paced back and forth like a man who'd lost his mind, unable to decide what to do first. I shot Kelly a small signal, then rolled my eyes back and collapsed into her arms. She immediately cooperated, screaming loudly, Lily, wake up! You can't pass out now! We don't even know if Ethan is alive." A moment later, Kelly pressed hard on a pressure point above my lip, making a sharp pain shoot through me as I gasped back to consciousness. My tears poured down like rain. "Mom, Dad," Ethan didn't even finish his sentence. My phone rang. It was a highway patrol officer notifying the family to come to the City General Hospital. The car was severely damaged. Firefighters were trying to free the victim, and 2 ambulances had already arrived. Kelly, calm and professional, stepped forward to speak on my behalf, communicating quickly and effectively. Soon the police sent full details, along with photos of the crash. I couldn't hide my satisfaction. Based on the images and report, it looked like Ethan had been speeding. At a curve in the road, he flew straight through the guardrail and slammed into the cliffside. The airbags deployed, and he was still alive, but the front of the car was nearly crushed flat. His legs were pinned tightly under twisted metal. Firefighters were using heavy rescue equipment to cut open the cabin and free him. But the most amusing part was this. He had driven more than 60 miles, only to end up strapped to a stretcher and being rushed back to the city he had just left, heading straight for surgery. While my in-laws were panicking like ants on a hot pan, I kept crying, perfectly playing the role of the abandoned wife. Thankfully, Kelly reminded me, and I remembered we needed to pack up and head to the hospital. We connected via video call with the emergency rescue team at the scene. The image showed Ethan being carried out of the vehicle, his face pale as a sheet, his right leg mangled and covered in blood, bone exposed. Yet the first thing he asked was, "Where's my phone?" A paramedic, placing an oxygen mask on him, kindly held up the shattered device. "Your phone's broken. Your parents and your wife are connected on video right now. You need to stay conscious, all right?" Of course, all the family members were watching the live video, yet the person he considered his true soulmate wasn't among them. Ethan yanked off his oxygen mask, his breathing faint, but his eyes still stubborn and unshakable. I want to make a phone call." His voice was so soft it was barely audible. Even while dying, he tried to call Nora Owens, just to tell her he'd been in an accident. Unfortunately, before the call could even connect, he passed out completely. No one could understand their so-called love, yet they acted as if it were earth-shattering. Kelly, on my behalf, scoffed angrily at him through the screen. "Even dying, he's still determined to love her, huh?" The rescue team cut the video connection. Aside from worrying about their son, my in-laws had no reaction at all. Not that it mattered. I continued playing my role as the fragile white flower battered by the storm. Half an hour later, the piercing wail of an ambulance siren echoed through the hospital corridor. Ethan was rushed straight into the operating room. When we asked about his condition, the doctor simply replied, "Severe injuries, vital signs unstable, further tests needed." Karma came fast. The corner of my lips almost lifted before I buried my face in Kelly's shoulder, pretending to cry until I fainted. My mother-in-law, having just seen her son covered in blood and lying motionless on the stretcher, snapped. She grabbed my arm and yelled, "Why didn't you stop him? You knew he was that drunk. Why did you let him drive onto the highway in the middle of the night?" In the end, everything was still my fault. A daughter-in-law was always the outsider. Whatever happened, it would never be their precious son's fault. Fortunately, I had already discussed this with Kelly beforehand, anticipating exactly this scenario. I curled up, hiding my bandaged hand, choked up and full of grievance. "Mom, I tried to stop him. Look at the camera footage. He was determined to go find Nora Owens. How could I stop him?" My mother-in-law's eyes widened with anger. She knew her reasoning was shaky but still insisted on blaming me. "If you couldn't stop him, you should have called us. At the very least, call the police. Report that he was driving drunk. Wouldn't the police intervene?" Kelly immediately stepped between us. Her eyes were icy, her voice sharp and full of authority. "She didn't stop him? Mrs. Miller, Ethan was the one who ripped the keys out of Lily's hand. He abandoned his wife and child and rushed out looking for death. Who ran out of the house? Who treated his family like trash? And now you say she should have called the police to report him for drunk driving? After everything has already happened, anyone can play fortune teller. From the moment you got that call until the accident happened, plenty of time passed. Why didn't you call the police first, Mrs. Miller? She stepped forward, her tone even sharper. Ethan treated Lily like that, and she still didn't throw herself out the window to die with him. That was already incredibly rational. Kelly, a woman hardened by years in court, now fully loaded with ammunition, fired relentlessly without mercy. My mother-in-law was struck speechless by the counterattack and finally changed topics to end the confrontation, telling Kelly to stay out of their family business. My father-in-law frowned deeply and growled, "Enough. This isn't Lily's fault. The injured person is still in there. Stop shouting. You're disturbing the emergency staff." My mother-in-law collapsed onto a chair, crying and screaming. Our family was doing just fine. Why did Ethan have to be so foolish? It's all because of that fox Nora Owens. She ruined my son. Finally, she remembered the true culprit and poured her anger onto the right name. She kept cursing non-stop, but no one paid attention anymore. Not long after, a doctor stepped out of the operating room. Family of Ethan Miller, who is the representative to sign the surgical consent form. The patient has severe damage to the right leg, including a major arterial tear. To save his life, we must amputate. After several hours of emergency treatment, he still wasn't dead. Ethan was transferred to the intensive care unit, where he needed to be monitored until his condition stabilized. But this result left me a little disappointed. I immediately slipped back into my role, closed my eyes, shook my head weakly, and acted out the scene of overwhelming grief before pretending to faint. After checking on me, the doctor said that since I had just finished postpartum confinement and had suffered severe emotional shock, I needed plenty of rest. Finally, I was allowed to go home. When I returned, I saw Emily sleeping soundly beside Mrs. Turner. My heart softened for a brief moment. Then I pulled Kelly into my room and handed her the share transfer agreement already signed by Ethan. "Kelly, handle the company side first. Now that he's lost a leg, who knows if Nora Owens even wants him anymore. I'm afraid he might change his mind and refuse to divorce me. I still have one last card to play. I need to push him to the edge, make him lose control so badly that he'll agree to go register the divorce with me." Kelly took the documents, nodding without hesitation. She glanced at me with visible sorrow. She opened her mouth several times like a fish gasping for air but couldn't speak a single word. In the end, she simply gave me a thumbs up. I told her to rest assured, go home, and focus completely on handling the company transfer for me. After that, I lay on my bed and wrote a long message to my parents, explaining everything that had happened and all the plans I intended to carry out. I begged them earnestly to come help me. With the lesson from my previous life, I needed to prepare for everything. Raising a 1-month-old baby on my own meant I couldn't risk any carelessness. When people are pushed to the edge, they can do anything. My parents were traveling at the time. The moment they finished reading, they called me back immediately. "We'll take the earliest flight tomorrow morning." I reassured them, coordinated all the logistical details, then transferred a 2,000th she equivalent to Mrs. Turner, asking her to take good care of my daughter. Dawn was just breaking. It was nearly the time, in my previous life, when Ethan began to lose his mind. I went out, bought a new phone, changed my SIM, and then headed to the hospital, ready to pour fuel on the fire. He had already been moved to a regular ward, but he still hadn't woken up. In just one night, my in-laws' hair seemed to have turned visibly gray. They looked exhausted. Of course, I hadn't slept at all either, so I appeared even more miserable than they did. "Your father just lost a leg," my mother-in-law said, voice trembling. "Ethan definitely won't be able to accept it. We have to be gentle with him, help him get his spirits back." She adored her son like he was a precious treasure, so naturally she nodded along with anything that might comfort him. My father-in-law, having a bit more conscience, said to me, "You've suffered enough." Outwardly, I looked pained and pitiful, but inside I didn't feel the slightest bit wronged. At that moment, I only hoped Ethan would wake up soon, so he could fully experience Nora Owens's dramatic wrist-slashing performance. Ethan did not disappoint me. The moment he woke, he went crazy, ripping off his oxygen mask, trying to sit up, even attempting to pull out his IV lines. The anesthesia in his leg probably hadn't worn off yet, so he still didn't realize he was now disabled. My in-laws had to hold him down together. My mother-in-law clung to his arm, crying, "Where are you trying to go? You're seriously injured. You can't move like this." I stood beside them and whispered weakly, "She's right, your leg still can't move at all." Hearing my voice, he reflexively tried to move his right leg. Then he suddenly widened his eyes in terror and screamed, What's wrong with my leg? Why can't my right leg move? I can't feel anything." My mother-in-law burst into sobs. Ethan jerked upright, his trembling hands reaching down, only to feel the remaining stump cut off mid-thigh. I pretended to tremble, as I carefully explained. The doctor said, to save your life, they had no choice but to amputate. The moment he heard that, he completely lost his mind. He slammed his hands wildly against the hospital bed. "Why did you agree to cut off my leg? How am I supposed to live like this? Tell me, who gave you the right to decide for me? How am I supposed to go on?" My father-in-law tried to stay calm as he comforted him. "As a man, you need to be strong. As long as you're alive, there's still hope." He even gave examples of men who were disabled but not defeated, trying to spark some will to live in him. But Ethan didn't listen at all. He was like a wild animal trapped in a cage, slamming himself against all four sides, screaming that he wanted to die. I stepped forward, grabbed him, swallowed my anger, and spoke softly. "You don't care about your parents. You don't care about me or Emily. But what about Nora Owens? You said she's still waiting for you. You said you're all she has left. If you die, how will she survive?" The moment I mentioned Nora, he instantly calmed down. My in-laws looked at me with approval, as if they finally thought I was sensible. I handed him the new phone I'd just bought, speaking in a trembling voice. "I already replaced your SIM card. You can call her now." Before I even finished the sentence, I covered my face and started crying loudly, but I peeked at his reaction through my fingers. True love conquers all, I suppose. He immediately dialed her number. No one picked up. So he opened WeChat and checked Nora Owens's newest story. It was an artistic, gloomy photo. She wore a black spaghetti-strap mermaid dress, lying sideways on a pristine white bed. Beside her was an empty wine bottle tipped over, and blood from her wrist had soaked through a patch of the sheets. Just one single caption, but enough to drive Ethan insane. From wanting to die because he lost his leg, he instantly shifted to wanting to die with his beloved. My in-laws had to pin him down like a pig trying to escape on slaughter day. I quietly rolled my eyes in contempt. If you cut an artery, the blood should spray like a fountain. That kind of gentle pooling? She was completely fine. "Get some rest," I said gently. "I'll try to reach her for you, okay?" He was in total chaos, and my words were like grabbing onto a final lifeline. My in-laws didn't care how I felt. They only cared about whoever could calm their precious son. I quietly raised my phone and snapped 2 photos of Ethan's miserable, broken face. Then I took screenshots of Nora's story, along with the accident photos the police had sent us. After that, I opened the group chat of their old classmates and dumped everything in at once. I typed a quick introduction. "Hello everyone, I'm Ethan Miller's wife, Lily. Have you all seen Nora Owens's story yet? Last night, Ethan was driving to find her when he got into an accident. His right leg had to be amputated. He still wants to die to reunite with her. I have no choice but to speak up here. If anyone knows where Nora is, please let me know." Just as I predicted, Nora's deliberately suggestive photo set the whole group ablaze. Some were shocked at how generous I was. Others were excited for the gossip. I answered every question calmly, recounting everything exactly as it happened, each message backed by photos, no exaggeration, no distortion. I helped them broadcast the tragic star-crossed love story of Ethan Miller and Nora Owens to perfection. So perfect it sounded worthy of a double suicide pact. Soon enough, someone provided a lead. "Nora's fine. But Ethan, damn, he's really done for. I'll drop by the hospital when I'm free." Everyone could already smell the drama brewing. And the person who sent that message was someone I knew well. James Tran, Ethan's longtime rival in the industry, the one Ethan had stolen several contracts from. I turned back to my in-laws and to Ethan and said, Nora Owens was completely fine. After leaving Ethan's ward, I used my new phone to call James Tran, but before I even opened my mouth, he let out a mocking laugh. Nora is fine. Her husband is my cousin. She just went to the hospital last night for an IV drip. No stitches, no real injury. Those 2 posts she made, probably only her husband and Ethan ever saw them. One is the main target, and the other is the backup plan. If she can't reel her husband back, she might as well throw a hook at Ethan. Nothing to lose either way. They're separated and waiting for their divorce to finalize. She's just playing her last card to save her marriage. And Ethan, he's delusional enough to think he's the male lead in her story. Ending up like this? What a joke. Honestly, he continued, Ethan has always been nothing but her lapdog. Back then, Nora couldn't catch a rich guy, so she settled for him. Later on, the moment she got to know my cousin, she kicked Ethan away instantly. And now that her divorce is right around the corner, she suddenly remembers her backup plan, and Ethan is still licking her boots just like before. So Ethan had only ever been someone's backup option. I hated myself for being blind enough to choose the wrong man, picking up a piece of trash. My vision darkened with fury. I took a deep breath and asked, Mr. Tran, are you interested in acquiring my company? The sooner the transfer, the better. After all, both your cousin and I are planning to divorce. I'm sure there will be plenty of room for cooperation. Keeping the company in my hands is pointless. Better to convert it to cash. James Tran, Ethan's sworn rival, now stepping in to take over the company, it was perfect. It would clean up all the future mess. He burst out laughing. More than willing. You really do have guts, Miss Miller. Name your price. I spoke with him for more than 10 minutes. The negotiation went smoothly. I did take a slight loss financially, but in exchange, I gained 2 associates who would help me act out my plan perfectly. For an unlisted company, the transfer procedures were simple. Just a few days at most. The clever part was that the share transfer agreement Ethan had signed earlier didn't specify the recipient. How convenient. On paper, I wrote that the transfer fee was only 3,000 yuan to make everything look legitimate. The real payment was wired to an overseas account under my brother's name. I had nearly completed the transfer of most of my assets. Even if we had to divide property later, Ethan wouldn't get a single cent from this part. When I returned to the hospital room, Ethan still knew nothing. All he cared about was Nora Owens. Lily, how is she? Is she okay? I shook my head gently, comforting him. She's safe. Don't worry, I'm sure she'll contact you soon. And I was certain Nora would call, because James Tran told me one more delightful thing. Her current husband, his cousin, was unbelievably ugly. She had secretly cheated on him and was caught red-handed, which was why the divorce happened. Naturally, James's cousin wasn't a good person either. After they got married, he immediately had her sign a prenuptial agreement. Then everything he earned afterward was kept out of her name. Meanwhile, Nora loved playing the devoted goddess of the household role. For 2 whole years, she supported her parents' family, becoming the financial backbone for her younger brother. When you calculated it carefully, after the divorce, she would actually have to compensate James's cousin. No wonder she started scheming, either to soften her husband's heart or to pull Ethan in as a new fallback. James promised me he would expose Nora Owens' tricks directly in front of his cousin. He guaranteed that once the truth was clear, his cousin would turn completely cold and cut her off without hesitation. Therefore, I knew for certain, Nora Owens would definitely do everything in her power to latch on to Ethan again. And with the touching story I had just shared in the classmates group, something she would absolutely see, it would be strange if she didn't call. Ethan, just focus on resting for now, I said gently. Once your health improves, you can do whatever you want. My mother-in-law took advantage of the moment, now that Ethan had calmed down, and did her best to coax and comfort him. Ethan nodded obediently, sinking back into the sorrow of losing his leg. Right then, my parents stormed into the ward, furious. Ethan, do you think I'm dead or what? My father roared. How dare you torment my daughter? If you hadn't crippled yourself first, I would have broken that leg myself. My father, a former soldier, tall and broad-shouldered, thundered so loudly the entire ward seemed to vibrate. Compared to him, my mother was petite, but certainly not any softer. She swung her handbag and kept whacking Ethan on the head. When you knelt down to ask for my daughter's hand, what promises did you make? You garbage. Divorce her. My father immediately echoed, yes, divorce, absolutely. Here, the papers are already signed. Since you're not dead, drag yourself to the civil office and finish signing. My in-laws froze, forcing awkward smiles as they rushed to intervene. Oh, in-laws, we're all one family. Let's calm down and talk. The kids were just emotional when they signed. It doesn't count. They must have suddenly remembered that the divorce papers clearly stated Ethan would walk away with nothing. Now that he'd lost a leg on top of that, they were even more terrified. But my parents were not people who could be manipulated. If Ethan is trash, he is not part of our family, my father snapped. There's camera footage. There's his signature and his red fingerprint. If he wants to go back on his word, no way. Just then, Ethan's phone rang. Every single person in the room turned to look at him. The atmosphere thickened instantly. Ethan didn't care. His face lit up in excitement as he picked up the call. On the other end came Nora Owens' soft, tearful voice. Ethan, why were you so foolish? Does your leg hurt? You have to take care of yourself, okay? I've been so worried about you. I'm happy to know you still love me. I just want to fly to you right now and take care of you. But you're married. We shouldn't talk too much. It wouldn't be fair to your wife. Everyone's calling me the other woman. I can't do something immoral. Just a few crying words from his first love, his eternal white moonlight, were enough to bring Ethan to tears. His eyes reddened as he nodded over and over. When she reached the last part, he rushed to reply, the moment I heard you were getting divorced, I already signed the papers too. How could I let you be the third party? We've missed each other for too long. I won't miss you again. I only smiled coldly to myself, but my father couldn't stand another second of it. He barked, divorce right now. Go sign the papers immediately. My in-laws tried to speak up on Ethan's behalf, but seeing their son go insane for another woman so blatantly, they were too scared he'd lose his mind again. They stayed silent and let Ethan answer. Okay, I'll go register the divorce. Nora, wait for me. My father turned on his heel and left the ward. Moments later, he returned with a few medical staff and said bluntly, we're transferring him in the ambulance. I'll pay. Everything happened so fast that within minutes, we were already sitting inside the ambulance. Ethan's phone was still connected to the call. My in-laws, who had been awake all night and stressed all morning, were so stunned they didn't even react in time. The ambulance pulled out of the hospital, leaving them standing in shock behind us. Fortunately, I had prepared all the necessary documents in advance. Without his parents whispering in his ear, and with Nora Owens' soft, affectionate voice echoing through the phone, Ethan was even more desperate to divorce me than I was. Riding in an ambulance to register a divorce, surely the civil registry officers didn't see that every day. So they immediately opened a fast-track lane for us to process the paperwork. The whole procedure went so smoothly that I could hardly believe my own eyes. People say that when a man is cheating, there's a period where his brain is controlled like an addict in withdrawal. If the wife chooses that exact window to ask for a divorce, he'll agree to anything and sign whatever she puts in front of him. I never understood that before. But this time, I experienced it so deeply it engraved itself in my bones. I silently thanked the heavens. Holding the divorce certificate in my hand, I turned to Ethan and said, you wrecked the car. I'll change the locks on the house. Our daughter's bank accounts are with me. But I'll pack up all your things and place them outside your parents' home. From now on, we go our separate ways. No one bothers anyone. I paused, then added, I'm sure Nora Owens will come take care of you soon. I won't go to the hospital and intrude on the two of you, but I do need to remind you, don't tell her you walked away with nothing. She already has enough to worry about. Don't burden her with finances too, okay? Ethan heard that and thought I was genuinely concerned for him. His conscience flickered back to life for a moment. Lily? I'm sorry. That sentence nearly made my skin crawl. I jerked my hand away, keeping distance and drawing a clear line. Enough? No apologies, just say thank you. My in-laws, or rather, the former Mr. and Mrs. Miller, since we were now divorced, drove frantically behind the ambulance. blocking lanes the entire way. But by the time they arrived, the ambulance had already left long ago. I had gone with my parents, giving them no chance to say a word. That same day I hired cleaners to empty out every single belonging of Ethan's and had it all delivered away. Then I immediately moved back into my parents' home. Since the house had always been under my name, I didn't need to transfer anything. I changed every lock, then listed the place online for a cheap sale. The whole process was so fast and clean that even Kelly, who handled countless divorce cases, smacked her thigh and exclaimed, "Lily, you're incredible. Fast, sharp, satisfying." But then she frowned. There's still the waiting period before the divorce becomes official. What if Ethan changes his mind and refuses to sign the final confirmation? What's your plan? Honestly, I was struggling with the same fear. If not for that worry, I wouldn't have moved so quickly. Ethan might be insane, but his parents were still sane. Once James Tran completed the procedures and officially acquired the company, those two old foxes would definitely panic. "I need to borrow 2 people under you," I told Kelly firmly. "I have a few things they need to handle." After arranging everything, a hollow feeling spread through my chest. I felt like I had just woken up from a long, heavy dream. In only 2 days, my life had completely changed. Looking at my parents and my daughter, people I had nearly lost forever, my eyes filled with tears. I threw myself into my mother's arms and cried uncontrollably. Then I told them everything about my previous life, disguised as a dream. After hearing it, my parents trembled with rage, nearly rushing straight to the hospital to beat Ethan to death, just to vent their anger. The days after that, I stayed at my parents' house to recover, spending every day with my daughter and with them. Life was peaceful and gentle, indescribably comforting. But occasionally, I received updates from Kelly's assistant and from James Tran. There were still many storms ahead. The real drama was only beginning. James's cousin, the current husband of Nora Owens, quickly received his divorce registration once the waiting period ended. Nora actually flew over to take care of Ethan, clinging to him like a devoted wife. A few days later, James officially took over the company. That was when Ethan and his parents truly started to panic. One of Kelly's assistants called me. "Miss Lily, that scumbag's parents are urging him to hold on to you, refuse the divorce, and they're planning to file a lawsuit to renegotiate the asset division. And that woman, Nora, has been hidden away like a cat covering its mess. I think there's a high chance this will end up in court." I had already prepared myself for a lawsuit. After ending the call, I went to find Kelly. "Kelly, I don't want to drag this out another day. File the lawsuit, schedule the hearing as soon as possible. If he signs, we'll withdraw the claim later." His family had gone to my old house several times but never found me. Eventually, they showed up at my parents' home. My father grabbed the broom from the yard and roared, "You still have the nerve to come here? Get out. If you show up again, I'll beat you for real." I heard they even lurked around the neighborhood a few times, but I hid well and never appeared. On the last day of the waiting period, Ethan finally showed up. "Lily, I don't believe you sold the company for only $5,000. Based on valuation, it's worth at least $1.2 million. And with the house sale money, the total should be about $1.7 million. I'm not asking for everything, I just want $700,000. Today, let's go pick up the divorce certificate. We were married once, don't be so heartless." I let out a cold, humorless laugh. The down payment for the house, the investment in the company, all of it was paid by me and my parents. You forget quickly, don't you? If we're talking marital assets, shouldn't we also calculate the house your parents still own? Should we add that too? He froze. I had nothing more to say. I turned and walked away, ready to wait for the lawsuit. Then I called James Tran. "Mr. Tran, it's time for your people to make the final move." James laughed heartily. "I've been waiting a long time for this show. I guarantee you'll be satisfied." That day, James openly told Nora Owens everything about the company. Then he came back and recounted the entire scene to me. Nora immediately exploded at Ethan. She screamed, cried, made a scene, threatened to die. Ethan reluctantly admitted that yes, he really was penniless now. I don't know what bait James's cousin dangled, but Nora somehow believed the man still had feelings for her, like she had a chance to reconcile. So she instantly flipped like turning a page. She turned into a full-blown banshee, cursing him viciously. A crippled, broke nobody wants to marry me? You shameless sack of trash, your pockets are emptier than your pride, and you dare say you'll give me $500,000 as a wedding gift? You tricked me into taking care of you for days. Every time I slept with you, I felt sick. Even after all that, Ethan still had the nerve to cling to her. I've already filed to dispute the asset division. I'll definitely get the money back. I'll give you the full $500,000 for the wedding. As long as you still love me, I'll do anything, work like a horse, a slave, for you. Nora's eyes bulged so hard they looked like they hit the ceiling. Love you? Love my ass. Mrs. Miller couldn't stand it anymore and jumped in to scold her, but even the two of them together couldn't win against Nora Owens. Only at that moment did Ethan finally see who his so-called goddess really was. He stood there, stunned like a lifeless statue. Nora sneered, "You really love to imagine things, don't you? That photo on my story, it was for my husband. You were just accidentally included, and you believed it?" When Ethan learned the truth about the night of the accident, he completely lost it. "I'll kill you," he screamed, and lunged out of his wheelchair toward Nora, but his leg couldn't support him, and he collapsed face first on the ground. Nora even kicked him. "You crippled loser. You still dare act tough? Have you looked in a mirror lately to see what you are now?" James described the scene so vividly it felt like a live broadcast. My only regret was not witnessing it myself. It would have been spectacular. Ethan fell into a complete breakdown for over a month. As the trial date approached, about 2 weeks left, he started sending me long messages, pages and pages like full-length novels. He wrote all kinds of things: repentance, nostalgic memories, how much he missed our daughter. I didn't block him because I needed the evidence, and honestly, it was a bit of entertainment. I didn't expect him to get even more enthusiastic, sending several long messages every day, none of them repeating. Then he started copying old idol dramas, standing outside my building in the pouring rain all night, taking photos of himself getting IV drips in the hospital and sending them to me. I forwarded the photos to James Tran and Kelly. The three of us laughed ourselves breathless. But after that episode, Ethan suddenly disappeared. Thinking of how cruel he had been in my previous life, I couldn't help but shiver. I texted Kelly immediately. "Be careful. Ethan might snap. His mental state seems unstable sometimes." On the day of the hearing, Ethan burst into tears in the courtroom. "Lily, I love you. I don't want a divorce. Your Honor, our relationship hasn't broken down. I will fix it." Kelly calmly presented several pieces of evidence and projected them right there in court: the security camera footage from Emily's 1-month celebration, the series of intimate photos of him and Nora Owens during the supposed calm period, a video of the two of them living together at the Miller's home, and finally, the voice recording of Nora demanding a $500,000 wedding gift. And the final line: "Every time I sleep with him, I feel nauseous." I almost burst out laughing. Ethan was speechless, completely unable to respond. His lawyer then pulled out a video from the night he signed the divorce agreement. "This contract was signed while my client was intoxicated and not mentally aware. We request the court declare it invalid." Kelly immediately countered with another set of videos, evidence that their relationship wasn't just damaged but absolutely shattered beyond repair. Ethan stared at me, eyes bloodshot. "Lily, did you ever love me?" I remained calm, completely detached. Ethan suddenly let out a hysterical laugh, tears spilling down his cheeks. "Fine. I agreed to the divorce." When I stepped out of the courthouse, I lifted my hand to shield my eyes and tilted my face up toward the sunlight. My heart finally felt completely free. It was time for my daughter and me to welcome a new life. Suddenly, someone tapped my shoulder. I turned and saw James Tran standing beside me, smiling with that cocky, handsome grin of his. "Congratulations on your divorce. Want to give Ethan one final fatal blow?" "What blow?" "Marry his archenemy. Let your daughter call that man Dad. Ethan will die inside." "You're crazy." "No, I'm serious. At least think about dating with the intention of marriage. Honestly, that's still being pretty gentle." I told him I'd think about it later. This man really was something. Interesting, sharp, and even a diamond-level bachelor. But I had no plans to date or get married anytime soon. I wanted to let life take its course. Sometime later, I heard news about Ethan from a report. He and Nora Owens had both died, Not from some tragic love suicide, but from something that should be called exactly what it was. They committed a crime, panicked, and took the coward's way out. According to James Tran, Nora had discovered her ex-husband absolutely had no intention of reconciling, so she rushed to marry someone else. Her life afterward was mediocre, but still enough to irritate Ethan. He probably resented how her dramatic, symbolic post back then had caused him to lose his leg, lose his career, lose his life. People love to blame others instead of looking at themselves. That afternoon, I received the final letter Ethan had sent. The gist was that he had been blind in heart, blind in mind, that he had failed to see Nora Owens's true nature, and that he had never understood his own heart. But when he finally realized that the person he truly loved was me, it was already too late. He said his life had been full of suffering, and before leaving this world, he hoped I could forgive him for something. So the pure and innocent first love turned out to be filthy. And now he wanted me to become the lingering regret in his heart, the one he could never have, so he loved even more. Completely delusional. Get lost.